The first time I saw my ATV tearing down the private trail behind my property, I thought it had been stolen. The second time I saw it, I recognized the long blonde ponytail whipping in the wind. It wasn't a thief. It was the HOA president's daughter. And when I confronted her, she laughed. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about a missing ATV. This was about power. And someone thinking they were untouchable. When I moved to Cedar Ridge Estates in northern Colorado, I knew what I was getting into. HOA. Rules. Committees. Community standards. But I also knew one thing. I wasn't renting. I owned my land outright. 3 acres backing up to open forest. No shared driveways. No common yard space. No reason for anyone to be on my property. Or so I thought. My name's Daniel Harper. 38. Former Army mechanic. Now I run a small equipment repair business out of a workshop I built legally and fully approved by county permits. And yes, I own an ATV. A Polaris Sportsman 850. Matte black. My weekend therapy machine. I don't race it through the neighborhood. I don't rev it at midnight. I ride it on the back wooded section of my own land and sometimes on the county-approved trail that connects to it. Totally legal. Apparently, that offended someone. Her name was Linda Baxter. But nobody called her Linda. They called her President Baxter. She had that haircut. The one that says, "I demand to speak to management." She'd been running Cedar Ridge HOA for 8 years. No one ran against her. Mostly because anyone who did suddenly found violation letters taped to their door weekly. Mailbox color violation. Fence stain violation. Holiday decoration timeline violation. She thrived on it. The first time she came to my house was 3 weeks after I moved in. She didn't knock gently. She pounded. When I opened the door, she held a clipboard like it was a badge. "Mr. Harper, we've received complaints regarding excessive recreational vehicle noise." "It's 3 p.m., I said. "That's not the point." "Actually, that's exactly the point." Her lips tightened. "You'll be receiving a formal notice." She left without another word. That was the beginning. I didn't meet her daughter until 2 months later. Her name was Madison Baxter. 17. Entitled wasn't a strong enough word. She drove a white Jeep Wrangler her mom probably bragged about at board meetings. I first saw her parked halfway into my gravel driveway, blocking my truck. I walked up and knocked on her window. She rolled it down 2 inches. "Yes. You're in my driveway." She smirked. "It's not posted. It's common sense." She sighed dramatically, then backed up slowly, like she was doing me a favor. That look she gave me? That was the look of someone who'd never been told no. The ATV disappeared on a Thursday afternoon. I noticed it when I went into the workshop and saw the storage space empty. My first thought was theft. But there was no broken lock. No cut chain. Nothing disturbed. I checked the security cameras I had installed on my workshop exterior. And there it was. Madison. Walking up casually. Using a spare key from the hook beside the door. Starting my ATV. Driving off like she owned it. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Then I laughed. Because surely this was a mistake. Right? Wrong. I drove straight to the Baxter house. Biggest property in the neighborhood. Flagpole out front. HOA sign mounted near the driveway like it was government property. Madison's Jeep was there. So was my ATV. Parked beside it. I walked to the door. Linda answered. "Yes. Your daughter took my ATV. She didn't even blink." "I'm sure that's not true. It's parked in your driveway." She turned her head slightly. Madison stepped into the hallway behind her. Still wearing riding gloves. "Oh, that," Madison said. "I just borrowed it." "You what?" "It was just sitting there. On my property." She shrugged. "You weren't using it." I looked at Linda. She crossed her arms. "Daniel, perhaps if your recreational vehicle weren't such a disturbance, this wouldn't be an issue." I blinked. "Your daughter trespassed. Broke into my workshop. Took my property." Linda's voice turned icy. "You have no proof of that." I smiled. "I do." And that's when things escalated. The next morning I received an HOA violation letter. Unregistered business activity. Unauthorized structure. Noise disturbance. Fines totaling $1,800. Coincidence? Not even close. I knew this was retaliation. So I responded calmly. I emailed the HOA board. Attached. County permits. Business license. Property boundary survey. Security footage screenshot of Madison on my ATV. I copied the entire board. Not just Linda. 2 days later I received a response. From Linda alone. "Your continued harassment of my family will not be tolerated. Cease and desist." Harassment? She was trying to flip the script. And that's when I realized something important. This wasn't about the ATV. This was about control. A week passed. Quiet. Too quiet. Then Saturday morning at 7:12 a.m. my phone buzzed. Motion alert. Workshop camera. I opened the feed. Madison again. This time with 2 friends. They were laughing. Filming on their phones. She hotwired my ATV. She had learned how. I didn't drive over. I called the sheriff. And I waited. Deputy Collins arrived 15 minutes later. We watched the footage together. He scratched his chin. That's pretty clear. We drove to the trail entrance where she was riding. When the deputy turned on his lights, Madison panicked. She nearly tipped the ATV. When she stopped, she yelled, "This is ridiculous." Deputy Collins was calm. "Ma'am, is this vehicle yours?" She hesitated. Then said, "It's community property." I almost laughed. Community property. Deputy Collins turned to me. "You want to press charges?" I didn't hesitate. Yes. And that's when everything exploded. By evening, the neighborhood Facebook page was on fire. Linda posted, "Certain residents are targeting my minor child over a misunderstanding." She painted Madison as a victim. Me as aggressive, dangerous, unstable. I responded once. With a still image from the security camera. Timestamp visible. Her daughter entering my workshop. The comments turned. Fast. People began sharing their own stories. Unfair fines. Intimidation. Selective enforcement. The illusion cracked. 2 weeks later I was served. Defamation. Harassment. Emotional distress. Linda had hired an attorney. She wanted to scare me. But here's the thing about bullies. They expect you to fold. I didn't. I hired a lawyer too. Former prosecutor. Sure. Come. Unimpressed. When he saw the footage he said, "This is going to be interesting." During legal discovery things surfaced. Financial discrepancies in HOA funds. Selective enforcement emails. Board members pressured to resign. And the best part? Security footage from other residents showing Madison using their property without permission. Golf carts. Bikes. Even someone's riding mower. Linda had buried complaints for years. Because no one wanted war. Until now. The courtroom was packed. Half the neighborhood showed up. Linda walked in confident. Madison looked bored. The judge reviewed the footage. Listened to testimony. Read HOA bylaws. And then asked one simple question. "Mrs. Baxter, do you deny your daughter entered Mr. Harper's property without permission?" Silence. Then, she believed it was communal. The judge blinked. "On 3 private acres?" The room went quiet. Charges against Madison were upheld. Trespassing. Unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Community service. Probation. The defamation suit? Dismissed. The HOA's financial records? Ordered for audit. Within 3 months, Linda resigned. 3 board members stepped down. A new election was held. I didn't run. But someone honest did. And won. One evening, months later, I was riding my ATV on my back trail. Sunset cutting through pine trees. No violation letters. No Facebook drama. No clipboard pounding on my door. I saw a moving truck outside the Baxter house. They were leaving. Madison avoided eye contact. Linda didn't look at me at all. And I didn't wave. Because this was never about revenge. It was about boundaries. And some people only learn them the hard way. After I pressed charges, Cedar Ridge split into 2 camps overnight. Not publicly. Not loudly. But quietly. Driveways told the story. Half the neighborhood stopped waving to the Baxters. The other half pretended nothing had happened. Linda tried to regain control fast. She scheduled an emergency HOA integrity meeting. The email subject line read, "Restoring community harmony." Translation, damage control. I showed up. Not because I wanted to argue, but because I wanted everything on record. The clubhouse was packed. Even people who hadn't attended a meeting in 5 years were there. Linda stood at the podium like she was addressing Congress. "My family has been subjected to harassment and targeted hostility." Murmurs spread. I stayed quiet. She continued. "Some individuals are attempting to destabilize this community with false allegations." That's when Mr. Thompson, retired firefighter, lives 2 houses down from me, stood up. "Are you calling the video fake?" Linda stiffened. "Context matters." "Context," he snapped. "Your kid stole his ATV." Madison, sitting in the back row, rolled her eyes. That didn't help. Then Mrs. Chin stood. "My son's bike went missing last spring. It showed up in your garage, Madison." The room shifted. Linda's composure cracked for half a second. That was the moment I realized something important. This wasn't isolated. This was a pattern. When the judge ordered an audit of HOA finances, Linda dismissed it publicly as routine procedure. It wasn't routine. The audit uncovered $48,000 in administrative consulting fees, a landscaping contracts awarded without bids, illegal fund usage for personal attorney fees, fine collections never properly logged. And guess who approved every single expense? Linda Baxter. The board members who had backed her suddenly claimed they weren't aware. Classic. But the documents told a different story. Emails showed she had pressured them into rubber-stamping decisions. Threatened to publicly accuse them of violations if they questioned her. Control. That word again. Madison's criminal hearing took place 6 weeks after her arrest. She walked into court wearing a designer blazer like she was attending a debate competition. Her attorney tried the angle. She's a minor who misunderstood property boundaries. The prosecutor played the security footage. Then played the second footage. Then the third. Because yes, I had installed interior cameras after the first incident. The judge leaned back. You hotwired the vehicle after access was restricted. Madison swallowed. Her confidence evaporated. When asked why she did it, she said, I didn't think he'd do anything. Not, I'm sorry. Not, it was wrong. Just that. She didn't think I'd act. Untouchable. That word echoed in my head again. Madison was ordered to complete 200 hours of community service. Ironically, part of it involved trail restoration. Supervised. Public. Visible. The first Saturday she showed up in work boots, half the neighborhood watched. Not maliciously. Just curious. Consequences had finally arrived. And consequences are loud. Losing power does strange things to people. Linda wasn't going down quietly. She attempted one last maneuver. She filed an emergency HOA motion claiming, my workshop violated aesthetic standards. My security cameras invaded community privacy. My ATV usage constituted nuisance behavior. This time, however, the board didn't side with her. 2 members abstained. 1 voted against. The motion failed. Publicly. For the first time in 8 years. Linda left the meeting early. Didn't speak to anyone. That night, the neighborhood Facebook group changed its tone permanently. Posts started surfacing. Why were fines different for different houses? Where did our reserve fund go? Why were elections uncontested for so long? The dam had broken. The audit escalated beyond HOA internal review. A forensic accountant was brought in by several homeowners pooling legal funds. What they found went deeper. A landscaping company owned by Linda's cousin. Inflated snow removal contracts. HOA debit card used for personal restaurant charges. Attorney retainer paid from community dues. It wasn't embezzlement on a criminal scale. But it was abuse. And abuse, once exposed, destroys authority fast. 3 months after the first ATV incident, Linda sent a single email. Effective immediately, I resign from the presidency of Cedar Ridge Estates. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just resignation. The board followed within days. An emergency election was held. This time people ran. 3 candidates. Open debate. Transparency promises. Felt like a different neighborhood. Something unexpected happened during Madison's community service. She changed. At first she was angry, defensive, blaming everyone. But week after week of supervised labor, clearing trails, repainting park benches, cleaning graffiti, something shifted. One afternoon I was riding the back trail when I saw her working with a small volunteer group. She froze when she saw me. I slowed down, shut off the engine. Silence stretched. Then she said quietly, I shouldn't have taken it. No audience. No camera. No Facebook thread. Just trees. I nodded. That's all I wanted. That moment wasn't dramatic. But it mattered. Because consequences can crush someone. Or reshape them. The Baxter house went up for sale in early fall. No big announcement. No goodbye party. Just a sign on the lawn. Moving day was cloudy. I watched from my driveway as boxes were loaded. Madison looked different. Quieter. Less sharp around the edges. Linda avoided eye contact entirely. As the moving truck pulled away, I didn't feel victory. I felt relief. Because the neighborhood wasn't afraid anymore. And that changes everything. Cedar Ridge is calmer now. The new HOA president is a retired school principal named Martha Ruiz. Transparent budgets. Open meetings. Recorded minutes. Financial reports posted monthly. Fines require board consensus. No more weaponized rules. And my ATV? It still runs like a beast. But now when I ride it, I don't feel watched. I feel free. This story was never about an ATV. It was about entitlement protected by authority. It was about someone thinking rules were tools to control others, not protect the community. It was about a teenager who believed her last name was immunity, and a neighborhood that stayed silent for too long, until someone didn't. Last Saturday, Cedar Ridge hosted its first open community cookout without tension in the air. Kids played in the field. Neighbors talked without whispering. Music played without someone checking decibel levels. As the sun set, Mr. Thompson walked over and said, You know, if you hadn't pressed charges, none of this would have come out. I looked toward the wooded trail behind my property. You don't fix rot by ignoring it. That night, I parked my ATV, locked the workshop, and looked out over my land. Peace isn't loud. It's quiet. It's steady. And it's earned. Madison thought she was untouchable. Her mother thought she was invincible. But in the end, the truth did what it always does. It rode out into the open. And it didn't ask for permission.